Hello, and this is lesson 4 of materialX and Karma XPU. So I took a long break in the middle because 19.5 was coming out, and then I was working on a new project which will be the new training. So now we're finally back. So this lesson we're going to take a look at how to use attributes in Karma XPU. Okay, so this is a basic animation that I was making. So we'll set this up and then we'll just do a quick render of it using Karma XPU. The basic attribute stuff isn't very complicated, so I said okay, I'll just make a small project out of it. What I'm going to do is I'll just pick up the basic model from here, which is nothing, which is I have like the test rubber toy, and then I did a Boolean union so that I could merge all the internal parts, and then I gave it a subdivision. Okay, so I'm just going to take this and do a copy, and then let's make a new file. We'll call this toy, and I'll just paste it in there. So the first thing is press D and we'll turn off show UV map. Now what I want to do is I want to have one set of attributes which are based on curvature, and then the waves I made using mask from geometry. Okay, so we'll do both of those. So I'll just take a curvature node. So take a labs measure curvature. Make sure you have the lab tools installed. Okay, like why not? I mean, they're free. Okay, so we'll just take this. I'll say export a single color or not. I mean, that's fine. We don't need the color actually. I'm going to take this intensity up to 100 so you can like see it, and maybe give it a blur of about 3. I think that should be fine. And then with the concavity again, I'll pick up the intensity to about 500. So there you go. You'll see the concavity. So we have those two. We can turn off export color. They're not really needed. But if you press the I over here, you'll see that you have concavity and convexity. Like you have those two things. Okay. Now what I want to do is I just want to set up those waves. Okay, so what I'll do is I'm going to take a mask from geometry and we'll pick up a sphere. So I'll just plug this in and I'm going to just paste it, just move it to like, let's say here. I think that should be fine. So that's our mask. And now what I want to do is I want to convert this into waves and then give it a little bit of displacement, and also store that in as a custom attribute. Like you can modify it to mask itself, or we can make another attribute. So what I can do is let's take an attribute warp and we'll call this as waves, and I'll just jump in. I'll create a new attribute. We'll take a bind export and we'll call this as waves, and I'll take a bind node and I will import the mask. Okay, so what I want to do is, in order to convert this into waves, I'm going to take a trigonometric function and plug this into radians, and I'll just plug that into color so we can see what's happening. So take this trigonometric function, we'll set it to sine and make the frequency around 50. So there you go. Now if you want this to move, the simplest option is take a multiply constant node and just plug in a time in there and plug that into offset. So if we press play, you'll see this. Okay, we can just increase that to about the multiply to about 5 and you'll get that. If you wanted to go reverse, just do a negative. So multiply it by -5 and that's what we get. Now what I want is I want these to fade out. So we're going to take a multiply and multiply these waves with the original mask that we have. Okay. So just take this and plug it in there and see, there you go. So now you are fading out the mask. Now another thing that you should do is you want to clamp this, because the sine wave goes from 1 to -1 and we don't want any negative value. So just take a clamp and we can just clamp it. Okay. If you don't do a clamp, when we do a displace, you'll be able to see it, but also when we use this as an attribute, it could give issues. So it's better to just clamp it. Or you could try to remap it, like, you know, either ways is fine. But yeah, I'm just going to clamp it for now. Okay. So this is fine. I don't need it in color. So we'll get rid of that. I'll just plug this out to waves. Okay, now I want to displace this. So what I'll do is I'm going to take a mountain sop. And this is, we'll rename this to displace. What you can do is it basically is going to try and use like a noise. Okay. Instead of that, we'll keep it to noise. We'll just do enable remap and just bring, you know, both of these to 1. So I'll plug this in and you'll just see that it sort of, you know, expands out like that, because it just, like, if you keep it like this, you'll see there's a noise, but then, you know, we just uniformly expand it. And what you want to do is turn on blend and set it to use attribute. See, if I change it to mask, this is what you're getting. Like if I move this sphere around, you'll be able to see that, you know, kind of move around. But what I'll do is I'll change this to waves. And there you go. So if I press play, you get this. Okay, so just lower the amount. You know, we can make it around 0.05. Yeah, I think that should be fine. So we get these nice little waves. So what we have now is we just have, you know, we have our concavity, convexity. The mask we're not going to use, and we have waves. Okay. And let's also give it some color. So we can see like how to import color as well. So I'll just give it some color. I'll base it on the waves. Yeah, okay. And let's make this, let's do a blue and a yellow. I think that should be fine. Okay, and we'll just sort of push this in a bit. Yeah, that's okay. Okay, so this is done. Let's import this into Solaris. Okay, so we'll do a LOP network. Let's call this as, well, let's not call it as anything. Okay, so come in here, take a SOP import. Now the nice thing is, it's going to automatically import all the attributes. So you don't need to do anything. You know, like if you just pick up the toy, that's pretty much it. You won't need to do, you know, anything beyond this. I'm just going to do a split pane top bottom and turn on the scene graph tree. So, you know, it's easier for us to assign. I'll rename this to toy because that will be the name in your hierarchy over there. Okay, so we'll add a dome light and, you know, take any HDR that you want. I have like a studio HDR, so I'll pick that up. Yeah, there we go. And then I'll turn off the light display. So I'll just turn that off. Okay. And then I'll take a material library and I'll pick up an assign material. Sorry, that's a material linker. Yeah, material library. And there's some construction going on the side, so you might hear, you know, sounds. And then we'll just pick up a karma node. Now the new options in 19.5, it tries to set the resolution based on the camera aspect ratio. So when you plug it in directly, it will give you an error. So what you want to do is, if you don't have a camera, change the resolution mode to manual and then you'll be fine. Okay. If you have a camera, then it's okay. But if you don't, because I don't have a camera right now, so it will like make sure you change this to manual. And in Karma, I'm going to set this to XPU. Let's build a material. So let's type in Karma and you'll get something called as Karma materialX subnet. Okay, so let's call this as attributes and we'll assign this. So I'll just plug in here and like let's minimize this. And the toy goes in there and the material comes in here. Okay. Okay, so let's just turn on Karma XPU and see what we're getting. Yeah, give it some time, it'll, you know, it's compiling everything. So yeah, okay, so now we're good. Okay, so I can just take this and maybe rotate it around a bit. So by default, it's picking up the color. Like if a material is just assigned and it's not really doing anything, it'll just pick up the color. I don't know why or where it's picking up the color from, but it is. Okay. I don't think it's supposed to do that by default. Okay, yeah, because we haven't really set up anything in here. Okay, so what you want to do is just delete this, take a standard surface and plug this into the sub output, and there you go. Yeah, that was the problem. Okay, so first thing is, how do you pick up color? Okay, now there is a difference in the attribute name for USD and Houdini. So in Houdini, color is called CD, and in USD it's called display color. Okay, like the D is capital and the C is capital. So you're supposed to type in like that, but you don't need to worry about it. Okay, what you can do is, if you press tab and come to materialX, in geometric you'll find something called as materialX geometry color. If you just take this node, set this to color, you don't need to do anything else. Just plug this into base color and you'll get your color. Okay, so you don't need to worry about whether it's called display color or not called display color. Just use the geometry color node and you will be fine. Okay, and this is pretty much it. Like if you play this, so you have your, attributes coming in. Okay, but we don't want to set it this way. Let's say what we want is, I want to use the convexity to set up like a metal shader, and then I want the glow to be, or these waves to be in emission. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of this, and let's pick up materialX geometry property value, and we'll set this to float, and I'll call it convexity. Okay, so take convexity and drop it into base, and you'll be able to see your, so if I change this to concavity, you'll be able to see both the, the attributes that we have. Or we can change it to waves. We should be able to see waves as well. There you go. So you have waves, you have mask, so all of that stuff is there. So convexity is what I want. Yeah. Okay, now type in ramp and you'll get something called as materialX color ramp. So let's pick that up. I'll just plug this in over here. This will slow things down a little bit, like disconnect it from the base color. And what we'll do is, let's say I want this to be like a gray, and then I want maybe like a pink. Okay, and I want maybe a gold or something here. Like not orange, let's go yellowish. Let's say this is fine, but I just want to squeeze it in a bit like this. Yeah, there we go. So I want like these areas to become metallic. Okay, let me just make this slightly darker. Okay, now what I'll do is I'll take a remap. So we'll take a materialX remap, plug this in. This goes into metalness. Yeah, there you go. And what I'll do is I'm going to squeeze the in low and like bring it in really close. So you see this area will remain standard, and then you just have metal over here. Okay, and then I'll call it metal, and I also want to do the same thing for roughness, but we want to do the reverse. So what we want is like these areas should be shiny and this should be blurred out. So I'll make this 1 and I'll make this like 0.15, and that goes into specular roughness. See, so we can use this to set up, whatever we want. So if I change this to, I don't know, you can try changing it to waves, you'll get, that, or we can try changing it to mask. See. So, so this is fine. And now I want to set up the glow. So I'm going to like do Control C, Control V. You can rename this convexity. There is a new curvature node within Karma, but right now it's only supported by CPU. It's not supported by XPU as yet. Okay. And let's call this waves. So this comes in here to waves. And what we'll do is I'll take a remap if, in case we need it. And I'll plug this out into emission, and there you go. Okay, and let's set this color. The emission color, we'll set it to maybe like a yellow. Okay, that looks nice actually. And what I'll do is I'll just sort of squeeze it in a bit. Yeah, I think this is okay. Yeah, so remap is nice. And then I just want to take the out high to maybe 5, so it's like really glowing. So you can see it giving out color. It's not Karma is not very good at sampling like self emission, so it remains noisy, but yeah, there you go, like it looks nice. So yeah, so this is pretty simple, right? Like you can just take in attributes and, you know, build whatever you want. The one place, the same rules will apply for point rendering as well. It's not going to be any different. The only thing that is not supported as yet is you can't do attributes for instances. Like that is not supported as yet. Okay, so hopefully maybe by Houdini 20 they'll be able to, you know, bring that in. Okay, let's make a small change to this. Let's say if we want these waves to come in based on, like, okay, here's something that you can do. Like you can't directly do this in the viewport, but if I pin this viewport and I come back to my toy, and if I take this sphere and I start to move it around, let's say if we make it 0.5, see, you can, you know, move this around any which way you want to. Like if I take this out a bit like this, or if I take the mask distance and make it really tiny, that actually looks nice. There you go. It's like it's got like a wavy crown or something. Okay, but let's say what I want is I would like the these waves to be based on curvature. So how would you go about doing that? Okay, so what I'll do is I'll press a Shift P and I'll pause the viewport and unpin it. So we are back here. And I'm going to measure two curvatures, and I'll store one of the curvature as a separate attribute because the second one will override the first one. Okay, so I'm going to take this and I'm going to measure a curvature and just blur it a lot. Okay, so we don't need concavity, so we can get rid of that. And just we'll turn on single color for now, and I'll make this around 200. Okay, and what I want to do is I want to blur this. So I'm going to take the blur to about 1000. So it's like really blurred out like this. Okay. And now what I can do is I can take a wrangle node and we'll create a new attribute. We'll call it f at con, or let's call it convex. Okay. Which is equal to at convexity. Okay. And I want to, and that's fine, like, you know, so this is going to override that eventually. Okay, like let's get rid of the export color altogether. So what should happen is if I take a color node, if you want to check this, you know, if I set to RAM from attribute, you will have a new, see, we have, this is convexity, which is coming in from this node, and then this is convex, which is coming in from, you know, the other node that we have. Now what I'll do is I'll come into waves, and instead of bringing in the mask, I'll take a bind export. Sorry, I'll take a bind node for importing it, and I'll put like 2 points here, and I'll call this as convex. We'll bring in convex, yeah, and just to check it with the last, you know, value over here. So we'll see what's going on. You know, replace this in both the places. So there you go. So what will happen is you'll get like waves, but now they're based on, you know, the curvature value. Now it's looking very rough. So what you can do is take a smooth. You can take it any time after this. We can plug it in here also, and we will smooth out the convex attribute. And there you go. And if I like bring the filter quality to 1, see, it sort of smoothens out the whole thing a fair bit, which looks nice. And maybe I can just, let's promote the frequency. So it just, you know, we can do it quickly. And I can just come in here and maybe reduce it down to 30. Yeah, there you go. That looks nice. So what you're getting is like these nice little waves, which are based on the, you know, the curvature value of our geometry, which looks fancy enough. And maybe lower the displace a little bit. Let's make it 0.02. No, I think 0.05 is okay. So if we come back to the LopNet, press Shift P to restart it again, and you'll get something. Ooh, okay, hold on. Let's just reduce the amount of emission here. Let's bring it to 2. I think 2 is okay. There you go. See, so you can get like, some pretty fancy stuff. Okay, so the final thing is, how do you render this out as an animation? The thing to remember is that you're basically doing a viewport render. Okay, and you can do a flipbook of it. Like, that's the simplest way to do it, right? If I press D, I'll get rid of the environment. I'll set it to dark. Okay, and all you have to do is you can right click here and you can just do a flipbook. Okay, so if you want, we can do a flipbook of this and it'll just render out the whole thing for me. So if I, let's say, if I just want to do like 50 frames or 100, let's do 50 frames. Okay, and the size I'll keep it to 640, 480. $f4.jpg. Okay, and yeah, let's just do a start. And yeah, it'll just, this is the nicest thing about it, it'll just render it out to flipbook. So I'll just pause the video and come back once it's done. Yeah, so there you go. Like, if I press play, see. So if you just want to do, like a quick render of your viewport, you can just do it this way. It's very, very easy. All right, so that's pretty much it. So this is how you use attributes in Karma XPU. The next lesson, we'll take a look at subsurface scatter, and I'll also cover some of the newer things that have been added into Karma XPU with 19.5. We'll take a look at that in the next lesson.